So, Walt, do you think the Washington Redskins should change their name or keep it?
Well, they should change it.
Okay.
They should change it because, I mean, if they were the Washington Wetbacks or the Washington Niggers,
Oh, yeah.
it would have been a riot. It would have been a riot. And we would see Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and all the boys rioting and protesting. So yes, they should just end it. Just change the name, to just Washington or Washingtonians or whatever.
Right.
Change the name, and it's being a person of color. I can understand. There are a lot of people who like Leave Well Enough Alone. It's a historical name. I think someone said an Indian gave it to him.
No. Okay, for those that don't know, the original name of the Washington Redskins football franchise was the Washington Braves. They originally did not play in Washington, D.C. They played out of the Boston area. Okay, when Preston Marshall, their old owner, came on the scene, and they moved to Washington in the 30s. But when he came on the scene, he was the one who gave them the name Redskins. Not only did he do that, the old fight song that we folks from the DMV who have rooted for the Redskins, over the years, have long, kept sacred in our hearts, hail to the Redskins. It wasn't fight for old DC. It was fight for old Dixie. Yeah, meaning the old Dixie South. Okay, what you have to remember as well is at that time period, there was no Dallas Cowboys. They did not come on the scene until the very early 1960s. There were no pro teams in Florida, the Carolinas. You had college teams in, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee, and, Mississippi and other southern states. But as far as pro football, at that time period, we're talking about 1930s. The furthest south that they went at that time was Washington, D.C. And they kept a terrible tradition alive for a long time. In fact, George Preston Marshall, their old owner, he was forced to integrate. He did not want black ball players playing on his squad. The Washington Redskins were the last team to integrate. Hall of Fame wide receiver and running back Bobby Mitchell was traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Washington Redskins. And his inaugural season playing for the team, this man would be playing at the hometown field, and eggs would be thrown at him when he scored touchdowns. Not to mention, as I stated, George Preston Marshall did not want black folks on his team at all. He was very vehement about it. In fact, his words were, I'll put a darkie on my team. But that shouldn't surprise, a lot of you black folks, because,
Jack can't cook. A lot of people say he had a similar attitude.
Now, Jack can't cook was your typical, in my opinion, looking back on that era, when he was the owner of that team for a very long time, Jack Kent Cooke was your quintessential, how shall I say it? He took it a step further than Marshall. He was a behind the scenes exploiter, in exploiting, the talent. He did this when he was the owner, when he was the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, in fact. Just do some research. Do some research. But back to this topic on the name. The Washington Redskins. The name Redskin, it comes, it actually comes before the 19th century. A lot of, historians, will tell you it comes from like the late 19th. No, it comes actually from the 18th century and the 1700s. Prior to the Revolutionary War taking place, there was almost a 30-year war between the native tribes in areas of Massachusetts, New York. This stretches all the way to Canada. And a lot of the school textbooks will not tell you this, but it was this bloody war that the fathers of the colonialists were involved in that shaped the mindset around what we now call the Revolutionary War in that period. And it shaped it heavily because this was a 30-year period where these men fought left and right in, bloody wars. A lot of it was just straight up hand-to-hand combat.
30 years. That's longer than Nam.
Yeah, that's longer than Nam, folks. And these folks, after fighting this war, and then, you're hearing the British government, okay, now you're like, nah, man, I just got finished, staking my claim in this country. I'm gonna fight for my own sovereignty and everything else. So, yeah, it was that time period where you first start hearing the inklings of that word or that term, redskin. But as far as the athletic world is concerned, for a very long time, before they began to really organize in the late 1960s and early 1970s, the descendants of the tribes people who are left behind in this nation, okay, they just, they kind of turned a blind eye to the fact that, down in Florida State, the name of the team, the Seminoles. And they got a guy that dresses up in headdress with a spear, riding a horse all over the field.
A spear on fire.
Yeah, the spear is on fire and the whole nine. For a long time, they just kind of let it go. But around the early 1970s, and what you have to remember, too, is this. A lot of them saw us, black people, fighting for our, fighting for our stake of claim in this country during the Civil Rights era and during the Black Power time period of the late 1960s. This was no doubt the catapult, that made them go ahead and say, you know what, we're gonna finally, put an end to, to this nonsense with the mockery. But keep talking about that.
Yeah, the changing of the name, I think they should just do it. Change the name, and just make everybody happy. Because I know for certain, let it be the Washington Wetbacks, the Washington Niggers.
Oh man, they will shut down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, they.
So yeah, just change the name.